What happens when a CTO and a CIO of a global tech company step into the same room to talk about AI with a tech journalist slash podcast host? Well, that's what we're going to find out today, because I'm aiming to give you more than just tech talk, but a rare inside look at how executive decision making is shifting in real time. And on today's episode, I'm going to be joined by Jeremy Ung, CTO, and Sumit Johar, CIO of Blackline. And if you're a regular listener, you'll know he's been on the podcast before. So I'm looking forward to catching up with him and ultimately learning how together they're going to unpack how AI is transforming not just how software is built, but how it's governed, evaluated, and aligned with enterprise strategy. So, from avoiding AI sprawl to building trust in unpredictable outputs, today's conversation is going to go far behind buzzwords. But if you've ever wondered what customer zero really means, or how build versus buy decisions are evolving in an age dominated by AI, or why governance is more critical than ever, if these are the kind of things that rock your world, you're in for a treat today. So let me introduce you to today's guest. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Hi, Jeremy Ung. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Blackline. I've been at Blackline over a year now, helping to lead our technology teams, build new AI solutions, run our infrastructure. And prior to Blackline, I worked as a CTO in the cloud cost management space, and I've led engineering teams at Amazon Web Services as well as Microsoft.
And we are truly blessed today. We've got not one but two guests. So can you tell everyone listening a little about you too?
Absolutely. And I know, Neil, I'm not new here anymore, but I'll introduce myself anyways. I'm Sumit Johar, CIO at Blackline. Been with the company for just over a year now, primarily responsible for running a technology strategy and operations for all of our internal operations mainly. And before I joined Blackline, I used to be a CIO at a company called Automation Anywhere. So a lot of time spent at both companies on AI, automation, really passionate about these topics.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you both joining me today. Sumit, you're heading towards your hat trick of appearances, just one more to hit that milestone. But one of the reasons I invited you both on the podcast today is we're hearing a lot of hype around AI for the last 3 years. And I'm curious, from everything that you're seeing, how are you seeing AI changing that traditional relationship between CIOs and CTOs? And are there any new dynamics that are maybe emerging from that shift? What are you seeing here?
Well, I know that one of the shifts for sure is that Sumit and I get called to present to the board and our executive committee jointly quite a bit. I think you can imagine just this is a hot board topic. And I think why this has really happened is there's blurring of the line between what is external that we build for the market and we ship in our product and how we enable our internal teams. Sumit and I just had a conversation yesterday about customer zero. How is Blackline customer zero for all the AI innovation that we build? And Sumit's team is responsible for enabling our internal teams. And so without that partnership, without that dynamic, we're unable to really build as compelling a product as we could. And so that's really our first principle on how we go and build software, customer zero, and making sure that our internal teams can adopt it and it's going to deliver value. And then Sumit also owns the governance portion, which is how do we make sure that we can trust the AI models, that we can trust the data we're putting into it. And I think maybe if you want to cover more on that topic, that's part of the most important parts as well.
Yeah. So what I will add, I mean, just to, extend the thought from Jeremy. So, one thing that's changing very dramatically is that the expectation from how technology can help drive the business is just growing exponentially. I mean, technology used to be just one of those enablers to run your business, to keeping the lights on. And, over the last few years, especially with emerging technologies, it has kind of become the main driver of running the business. You can't imagine growing your business without getting the technology right. And the main impact on that is that both Jeremy and I are expected in our respective roles to basically help the company advise and drive the technology to grow our business. And that is, to Jeremy's point, is driving conversations at the board level, within the company. as the business is becoming more savvy with technology, we are expected to be more of a business leader and not just kind of be the technologist. So the line is starting to blur between the two, and we are expected to advise the company on the right use of technology.
And you've also said that AI isn't just another SaaS tool. So, for everyone listening, what is it you think that makes it different from, what makes AI different from previous tech waves that we've seen, especially in terms of risk and strategic impact? It does feel different this time around, doesn't it?
It does, and maybe I'll tell you my perspective from what I'm seeing, and Jeremy, feel free to jump in. So Neil, what we are seeing is that there is a technical element to how AI is different from traditional SaaS, but then there is also technology, the way it works, the nuances of the technology that are also different. So I'll just try to touch upon both. Culturally, I would say all of our end users, the way people use technology, they are tuned to um, to see the technology kind of following your instructions in a certain way. It's more predictable. At least historically, it always worked like that. You assign a set of rules, you train it on certain instructions, and it will follow those rules and instructions precisely. And it was very easy to predict and audit because of the nature of how technology used to work. What has changed with AI is that one, it's providing much more human-like experience, how you engage with technology, which wasn't the case in the past. So people love, that aspect of technology. But the other thing is, just like a human being, it can sometimes make mistakes, and that's the part that people are just not able to understand, that hey, all this while technology was just so easy to follow my instructions. Why does it make mistakes sometimes? People have lower expectations from humans when it comes to making mistakes, and they expect the machines to be perfect, which isn't the case with AI. So there's that cultural element, which is what honestly we end up spending a lot of time training our employees when we deploy AI, about making sure that, hey, treat AI like a human being. Human beings make mistakes. AI can also make mistakes. So please, do your own diligence before you make some, critical decisions using the technology. So uh, that's a cultural shift. At least I'm noticing in my world. Jeremy, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think very much so. You'll hear like a lot of different tech leaders talk about how AI is changing what we think of as a user interface. So we've been used to using a mouse or a trackpad, pointing and clicking on menus and buttons. And I think what Sumit mentioned about this human-like experience, right? You can talk to AI, both text or speech. And there's this really emerging capability that you have as AI as a team member that you can assign tasks to, that you can get to send an email or help produce a document or collaborate with you on an activity. And that's changing how we build software, and how we think about the user experiences, but also how AI can use tools within the organization. Right, go to SharePoint and get a file and summarize its contents. These are the things that are beginning to emerge out of technologies like model context protocol, which is around tool use for AI. And that's where I think that relationship with Sumit again comes in, which is traditionally SaaS software has had a very fixed boundary about where it can operate. And as you have AI agents or agentic AI within SaaS products now, they're beginning to be able to use things like SharePoint or send emails. And that's where you're actually getting the same overlap with corporate IT governance, which is like, okay, if this AI agent is going to send an email, it needs to comply with the same data retention policies, with the filtering, with the same controls that we apply to employees. And so now there's becoming this intersection and changing of how we think about SaaS, not just as a tool you use, but as a part of your organization.
And another phrase I'm hearing more and more at the moment is AI sprawl. So I'm curious, maybe help everyone listening. They're seeing this phrase in their newsfeed all the time. What does AI sprawl actually look like inside real world enterprise environments? And how can leadership teams maybe better identify when it starts to become a problem?
Well, it's interesting. It almost feels like, full circle. 10 years back, Neil, if you spoke to me, we were constantly talking about the SaaS sprawl.
Mm.
And just about the time when CIOs and maybe even CTOs were kind of starting to get some control over that problem, we are not talking about AI sprawl. Basically, the excitement around AI has generated so much opportunities for the technology world. New companies are coming up and they're presenting ideas, building new technology in ways that wasn't the case in the past. Truly exceptional experiences. People are realizing that AI gives you an opportunity to solve a problem in a totally different way, which means you might be replacing an existing SaaS investment that you had with an AI-based tooling, and that's causing a big giant race inside enterprises about what more tools are there. Can I buy this? Can I buy that? And that's just causing kind of an explosion within the organization. So um, the good news is that this is not new. We've seen the same thing, with SaaS. So we kind of have checks and balances in place, and we are leveraging the same checks and balances and just making them better. I think in one of these previous talk tracks, we talked about a technology council that we set up exactly for that reason, where we meet with all teams, representations from different parts of the organization, our finance procurement team, CIO, CTO organizations. We all sit together and we collectively review all the new investments that are being asked, and we check whether these investments are duplicative or they actually make sense. How do we make sure people are not trying to invent the same wheel? So the governance structure is in place. It just, I would say, the opportunity to leverage the same governance a little more effectively, carefully. If you were getting, let's say, 3 or 4 requests a month for new tooling, and suddenly you're starting to get 5 or 10, that is a sign that that AI explosion has started within your organization.
And I think we can provide everyone listening with somewhat of a unique vantage point today, because we have both a CIO and CTO on one podcast episode. So, as CIO and CTO, how do you align on things like infrastructure and strategy decisions, and ultimately ensure that AI investments are sustainable, scalable, and hit those ROI objectives too?
Sumit covered part of how we govern this internally, in terms of just having that governance structure. And I think when we think about our technologies, one I think is flexibility. So when I think about building Blackline's products, it's about how do we make sure these products are flexible, composable within the office of the CFO, but also the CIO organization, right? Like we are often selling just as much to the CFO as well as Sumit as well, the CIO persona within an organization. So how do we make sure that whether it's an AI technology that we're going to bring to market, or whether it's part of our data platform, that it is something that Sumit's organization feels integrates in terms of their long-term strategy as a technology team? And I think that flexibility, that giving them that vision for how that technology plays in their landscapes and can evolve, prevents vendor lock-in from that perspective into specific areas. I think that is critical. And I think the other part where we've really spent a lot of time is the governance piece. You mentioned, governance. And I think one of the pieces is making sure that you can audit the outputs of AI, you can make sure you can audit what comes out of these systems so that you can understand, is it trustworthy? How do I continue to have those checks and balances? And there's it's a shared responsibility where, Blackline is constantly making sure that we produce authentic, accurate results, but also give the visibility to Sumit. The trust but verify model is so critical here to make sure that our products are governable and trustworthy, not just for ourselves to understand, but so that external auditors, external IT and finance teams can also see and prove that the work is being done correctly.
What's interesting about the CIO CTO relationship, especially within a technology organization, is that we are both in some ways a customer of each other's technology. I mean, I consume, as part of our customer zero model that we discuss, in one of these podcasts with you, Neil, we try to be the best user of our own technology. So Jeremy has direct feedback coming from my organization as he's trying to drive innovation for the customers, and we like to be the guinea pig, if for the lack of better words, basically, and we don't want our customers to be facing any challenges. We rather catch them first. Similarly, the technology that my team is developing and deploying inside the organization, Jeremy's team, I mean, he's got a big size team. It's a big part of the consumers of that technology. And the other aspect of this is AI is new for everybody, and we are expected to play the role of thought leaders. And at times, it feels like the game of catching up of whatever is changing in the world of technology is so much. It always good to have another partner just to kind of collect feedback, share ideas and get some, get another opinion of which direction you're trying to go. This is not a technology, especially when it comes to AI, where best practices have been established. If you establish a best practice today, 3 weeks later, a new technology comes up, and now you have to kind of, you go back to ground zero and revise that again. So for me, I really enjoy having another technology partner at the executive level, so I can exchange ideas, debate ideas, and we together can provide consistent feedback to our own management, our peers, and our board. Uh, you know, so that just consistency of how you apply technology is maintained across the organization.
Yeah, I'll add just one more thought to that is like I'm always picking Sumit's brain around like pricing, packaging. How do we make sure that we are able to resonate with the CIO in terms of how this technology will work with an organization? So how, like there's a lot of debate in the industry about like how should AI be priced? Should it be based on the cost of a human today? Should it be based on the amount of work done? Should it just be, a license fee? Like there's a lot of different models. And so getting that validation from peers is so critical. And then the education piece, which is also, again, I think critical, which is, I think if you really look at the workforce today, the number of AI professionals is in its infancy, right? Like I would guess like the overall tech organization, even the more forward-leaning organizations are not AI first in terms of how they've been trained in school or the work they've done in the industry. Just, I think realistically, we are at the early stages of having to build both the technology as well as the capabilities in our organization to be able to build AI solutions and to utilize them effectively.
And another question I'd love to ask you both is how you approach the age-old build versus buy dilemma, especially when it comes to AI capabilities, because I think even if a trillion-dollar company like Apple can have problems with this dilemma, I think it should offer a little comfort to everyone else. But what are some of the signals that maybe help guide a decision like that when it comes to build versus buy?
Yeah, it's funny with all this explosion of the need for AI and boards pushing for more AI transformation. No one's really been given more budget necessarily, right? There's still the same amount of dollars we have to work with.
Yeah.
So build versus buy is one of these critical decisions, and I think we grapple with that a lot as a team. And one, I think it's really about making sure that you're going to really get a competitive advantage. But why build something? And I think it really has to align with your core business. So the same principles for build versus buy before AI still stand true. It has to align to your core business. It has to deliver value to your customers, and it has to be part of your differentiated IP or intellectual property. If it's not differentiated from that standpoint and it's a commodity technology that you see evolving rapidly and outside your core competencies, then buy really makes sense. So we build when it's around our core IP and expertise, so financial close, intelligence around predictive matching. But we buy when it's things like voice technologies, automation technologies, large language models. Especially there, you saw a lot of market turmoil early in the year when new language models came out like DeepSeek that were drastically cheaper or reported to be much cheaper than traditional models from OpenAI and others. And so it just makes sense, we talked about this earlier, to be composable and flexible with what you utilize in certain core technologies. Make sure that you can adapt to new ones easily, plug and play. And we're always evaluating behind the scenes the different players in the space to make sure that we're getting the best value as well as the best experience for our customers and the products that we build from the different large language models. But I think it's too early to lock into one vendor for those sorts of technologies.
And with so many different stakeholders from around the business chasing their own AI initiatives in silos in often case, I'm curious from a Blackline point of view, what guardrails or frameworks are you putting in place to prevent AI from becoming not just fragmented or equally a duplicative investment, which we're seeing now as well? What guardrails do you put in place here?
So when it comes to guardrails, Neil, there are different problems we're trying to solve with the governance structure that we are putting. Earlier, you asked the question about, you know, AI sprawl. We talked about build versus buy. Well, there's another element of data privacy and security. The other element is regulations. What are the right use cases for AI? If you're not paying attention to regulations, if you're not taking, let's say, your legal team into account, and sometimes even your HR team, you might be making mistakes about applying AI in cases where you shouldn't. There are so many different angles to look at when it comes to deploying AI. Specifically, ethics is another one. So AI challenges about regulations, privacy, security, ethics. We had to create a separate forum just to talk about these things. So we call it an AI governance council. We have representation from legal, my team, information security team, Jeremy's team, and those are the councils which are tasked with making sure we are applying AI within the organization in a responsible way without causing risk to business. Um, at the same time, there are other forums like the Technology Council that I talked about, and the role of Technology Council is to make sure we are, putting the guardrails for making sure investments are not duplicative in nature. They are actually complementing each other. Build versus buy decisions. Are we investing in a platform? Are we investing in a point solution? So those kind of conversations are more, I would say, transformation focused. Those happen at that specific forum. So we got different forums depending on the nature of the guardrail we are talking about, but largely they all fall in these two categories: risk-based or transformation-based.
And I think because of the attractive nature of AI and the obsession with it in some circles, we often end up with a tech first, problem second kind of approach. So we end up with a solution looking for a problem rather than the other way around. So how do you ensure that AI initiatives ultimately, right from the beginning, align with broader enterprise goals, especially in regulated industries like finance and accounting, etc.? Anything you're seeing around this, and mistakes and better ways of doing it and getting that balance right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There is definitely a shift in AI within these organizations. It's gone from, something that people have been cautiously evaluating to more of an imperative to adopt. And that's the same conversation we get pushed on for our own teams adopting AI. And I think at the end of the day, the answer of why is about delivering value, about being efficient and being able to focus on the right and most important tasks. And so I think from an AI perspective, especially in finance where things are regulated and complex, is that it needs to be accurate, it needs to be trustworthy. And that's where we partner with audit firms, we partner with our partners and our customers to make sure that they can trust and understand the outputs of AI and that it's auditable. But ultimately, it has to deliver value for their organizations. It has to align with their goals. So whether it's accelerating a closed cycle or whether it's around being able to detect anomalies and identify risks, I think at the end of the day, it has to deliver a concrete value that aligns with the goals of their organization as a whole.
Yeah, I would just to extend Jeremy's thought on that. I mean, everything you said makes 100% sense. End of the day, AI is a technology, and the role of technology is to meet the business goals. And as we are deploying AI or other emerging technologies across the organization, sometimes you have to remind ourselves as well as our team members that remember the goals have not changed. The goals are the goals, and AI is basically a way to get to those goals. Let's not use technology for the sake of using technology, because then then it becomes a hobby. It's not a purpose, right? If you want to keep it focused on the purpose and the goal, whether it is, let's say, cost optimization, driving productivity or efficiency or growth. If you're a growth organization like Blackline is, we're spending a lot of time on applying AI to drive pipeline growth, customer satisfaction, providing exceptional experience to our customers. It all depends on the goals of your organization. And AI is no different when it comes to using technology for the already existing goals.
And as AI inevitably becomes more deeply embedded into all core business operations, and we look towards 2026 and beyond, I'm curious from both of your vantage points here, how do you see CIO and CTO roles evolving in the future? Are you noticing any trends already, or how do you eventually see this moving?
Yeah, we touched upon this earlier a little bit, but I will just emphasize more on this. I mean, the number of times we are being asked to provide to present our ideas on using technology for you know for meeting the organization goals and come and present in front of the board. That frequency itself has increased so much. I mean, there's so much. Um, Everybody realizes that there is an opportunity with technology, but there is also a little bit of skepticism of technology. Is this an opportunity only? Is this a risk to business? Is this um, can this cause challenges for employee, let's say, adoption or morale in some ways? All these questions, our board and our management are constantly bringing those questions to CIOs and CTOs, in this case, me and Jeremy. And I would say the role feels a lot more strategic suddenly. I mean, it's not like it wasn't. It's just that our role as a shift from being just technology leader to become business leaders has just happened overnight, and we are finding ourselves answering questions that we never used to answer in the past. That's what I would say. Jeremy, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I would definitely. I think there's a shift in the role, especially as we are helping to shepherd organizations be AI ready. Like there's an enablement and education aspect, which I think has not traditionally fallen as much to the CIO and the CTO to do. It's just such a new technology and it's evolving so quickly that it's imperative that not just internally within our teams, we help educate and inform on how to use new tools, technologies in the appropriate way, but also for our customers and that market-facing message, not just for the customers that are users of the software, but for the IT teams that sit behind them, helping them to support and implement them. It's about education as well on how to effectively utilize these technologies. And I think that's a very big change from what we've traditionally done, which is build and implement SaaS products. This is this education component. And then the other piece is you're also asked to forward look and say, where is this technology going to go? It's so early that no one has a definitive sense is what it's going to be like in 1 to 2 years, but we can definitely say that it's moving quickly, that we need to be agile. And so we're building, our own perspectives on where we're going to be in the next year to 5 years and helping our customers get there as well.
This is the most fascinating question that I always get. I'm sure, Jeremy, you too. People expect us technology leaders to know exactly where AI is going. The reality is that people who are producing AI technology, LLM models, they themselves don't know where it is going, but somehow we are expected to kind of see in the future, which is very fascinating. I mean, we always are, excited to share our opinions, but this is I would say, the interesting part of our roles also.
100% with you, and refreshing to hear you say that. And I cannot thank you enough for sitting down and sharing your insights. Before I let you go, we're going to have a quick fire round of a couple of questions here, have a bit of fun with you. And let's see where we'll go. Jeremy, to you first. Is there a book that means something you or that has inspired you that we can add to our Amazon wish list? What would it be? It can be anything at all, but what would you like to add to our Amazon wish list?
Well, I had prepared a song, but the book,
Oh, sorry. No, sorry.
the book that is top of mind, I'm still a big fan of James Joyce, Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man. That is probably one of my go-tos. But I will give a shout out since I heard you're from Birmingham. Black Sabbath and Ozzy. I think that is worth a shout out to add to anyone's Spotify playlist today of all days. Yeah.
Oh, what a great choice. Yes, 100% with you. I will add both the song and the book there. Fantastic. And there is a real pressure on all of us to be in a state of continuous learning. Question for you now. Where or how do you self-educate? How do you keep up to speed with this pace of change at the moment, which can feel relentless and overwhelming? But what's your secret?
Neil, there's no secret. I would say it's a challenge. We're all trying to deal with this challenge. The pace of technology innovation is so fast these days. It's like a constant game of catch up. Every day in the morning, I get up, my phone alerts me about something new that Mr. Sam Altman has let's say released, or some other. Sometimes it's in Meta, or sometimes it's Google. It's just or I have never seen technology moving so fast, so dramatically. So it's fascinating to keep up with the pace of that. And what do I do about that? Well, I'm not a big reader, so I rely on two things. One, podcasts. So I listen to these podcasts. One of my favorite ones is Acquired, which has nothing to do with what's happening in the world right now, but it does give you a perspective of how new companies are formed, their entire history, and sometimes you just learn something out of it. But as far as constant learning is concerned, I have never relied on as much on my own CIO network as I am doing right now. It's very clear to me that I cannot solve all these problems all by myself. Even if I'm probably going to solve them, later or slower than somebody else has. So I'm constantly in touch with other leaders from other organizations and trying to learn from their own experiments, their own, initiatives, and just constant the connectivity or shared learning is what I'm trying to count on these days.
Fantastic answer. And thank you so much to both of you for coming on the podcast today. For anyone listening wanting to find out more information about Blackline, about your work, about your approach, carry this conversation on that we started today, where would you like to point them?
Well, the best place is our website, blackline.com. So you can find more about our company, about what we do in the finance automation space. That would be the best place to go.
Awesome. I'll add a link there. And we covered a lot today, from why AI is not just another SaaS tool, the growing risks of that AI sprawl. Quite amusing, as you said, Sumit, around the everything happens in cycles. We're having a very similar conversation a decade ago. And also the rising role of CIOs and CTOs as co-owners of IT strategy and infrastructure decisions, and that why collaborative build versus buy decisions, they're key to avoiding costly, unsustainable investments too. So many big talking points there. I would invite everyone listening to get in touch to yourselves or to me. Let me know your thoughts, but more than anything, again, thank you for starting this conversation today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So a huge thank you to both Jeremy and Sumit for joining me on the podcast today and helping me navigate one of the most complex conversations in enterprise tech, and doing it with clarity, candor, and a touch of humour too. And we did cover a lot, didn't we? From AI as a team member to that shared burden of predicting the future. But I think one thing's clear. Being a tech leader today means becoming a business leader too. But if anything in today's conversation got you thinking, remember, pop by techtalksnetwork.com. Let's keep the discussion going. You can even leave me a recorded voicemail. I look forward to hearing those. I get a bit of a kick out of that because you hear my voice every day, so it's nice to hear yours too. But hey, let me know your thoughts on everything. Where do you see CIO and CTO roles? Where do you see them heading next? And who should own AI inside of the business? I'm going to light the fuse and sit back on that one. So let me know, and I'll speak with you all again very soon. Thanks for listening as always. Bye for now.